Greetings and welcome to another edition of Lessons with Odin. Today I will be showing you how to bead a crystal rondelle. This is part of the Phylactery tutorials. I've done one before where I have done the spike round component. This time I'll be showing you how to do the middle section. It would be an interesting little piece to hang on top of a cord or just use as a focal piece, like that. Or as a Y necklace, like that. As for the rest of the pendant, I have a PDF tutorial available on Craftsy. I have a link down below to show you how to do the rest of this piece and put everything together. I also have a tutorial for the spiral rope, which I will leave a link to, either in the suggestions or down below, or both. This is definitely an intermediate to advanced tutorial. This uses both the circular right angle weave techniques. I have a video about a bead cap that shows you kind of how to do this technique, as well as netting, which can kind of give some people a headache. So I recommend this for intermediate to advanced people. Beginners, do at your own risk, but definitely don't be afraid to try it. For this you will need an 18mm crystal rondelle. These may or may not be a little hard to find. I got one free as a free gift from an order, so I decided to do something with it, and it kind of exploded. Anyway, I can provide links of places that you can get this. I have some... Fire Mountain has the best color choices I found, but some of the colors are, like, discontinued and whatnot, so you might be able to find everything there. I am using a crystal astral copper color, which is kind of brownish with green flash and whatnot. You will also need some size 11 Delicas beads, some size 15 rounds. This tutorial, for the sake of simplicity, I'm only going to show you how to do this pendant in just one color of size 15s. As you can see, this pendant has two colors, as well as my main Phylactery pendant. The PDF tutorial will show you how to do this in two colors, but I'm just going to show you how to do it in one color of 15 beads. You will also need 12 4mm beads. I'm using Bicones. You will need 12 Color A 3mm beads, and 6 Color B 3mm beads. Color A is going to be used on the top. You can see I've used 3mm pearls around this one. Color B is going to just be used to dot the border, or the center, of our netting. And of course you will need a needle and thread of your choice. So let's get started. Okay, to start off we are going to thread on 6 Delicas beads. And pull them down to the bottom. Then we are going to pass back through those 6 beads to form a loop. This will be our base round for our circular right angle weave. Once you've done that, you'll take the tail end and tie an overhand knot with the working thread to secure it in place. And you will end up with a ring of 6. From here you can decide what you want to do with the tail, but I am going to get rid of it because I hate it. Then what you will want to do is pass through one of the Delicas that are right next to the knot so that you can hide the knot inside the Delica. And we are going to start with our circular right angle weave. So I'm going to take one 4mm bead, one size 15, one color A 3mm, one size 15, and one 4mm bead. Just like that. Now I'm going to pass that through the same Delicas bead around, going the same direction as the working thread so that I form a loop with those beads that I've just added. Just like that. To set up for our next stitch, all I'm going to do is pass up through the second 4mm bead. So I end up there. Now what I'm going to do is add on one size 15, one color A 3mm, one size 15, and one 4mm bead. Alright. Now I'm going to pass it through the second Delicas bead on our base round, and also pass up through the second 4mm bead. So that I end up with something like this. In order to set up for the next stitch, all I'm going to do is move through the set of 15 3mm 15, then down the 4mm bead, then across through a third Delicas bead on the base round. Pull that tight, and I have set up for the next stitch, which I'm going to add one 4mm bead, one size 15, one color A 3mm bead, and one size 15. To anchor this one, what I'm going to do is pass it through the third 4mm bead. Okay. So that I end up with 4 4mm beads and 3 3mm beads. In order to set up for the next stitch, I'm going to pass through the Delicas that's in between the last two 4mm beads, and then back up through the 4mm bead. Okay, so I'm ready for the next stitch. I'm going to add on one size 15, one color A 3mm, one size 15, and one 4mm bead. Then I'm going to pass it through the fourth Delicas bead on the base round. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to pass up through the fourth 4mm bead. So that I end up with that. To set up for the next stitch, I'm going to pass through the size 15, 3mm, and size 15, then down the fifth 4mm bead, as well as the fifth Delicas bead on the base round. To add the next stitch, what we're going to do is add on one 4mm bead, one size 15, one color A 3mm, and one size 15. To anchor it, we're going to thread it through the fifth 4mm bead. To set up for the next stitch, what we're going to do is pass back through the fifth Delicas bead on the round, then back up through the sixth 4mm bead. For this final stitch, all we're going to need is one size 15, one color A 3mm, and one size 15. Then what we're going to do is anchor it to the very first 4mm bead we added. Like that. So that we complete the star shape component flowery thing. To finish up and set up for the next stitch, all we're going to do is pass back through the 6th Delica bead on the base round, and then back up through the 6th 4mm bead. And you will have finished the cap component of your beaded bead. Feel good so far? Good. Take a bit of a breather, because we're going to start the netting next. Okay, we are going to start the netting part. Put on 1 Delica bead, 6 size 15 seed beads, 1 color B 3mm bead, 6 size 15 seed beads, 1 more Delica bead, 1 4mm bead, 1 Delica bead, 1 4mm bead, 1 Delica bead, and 6 size 15 beads. These 2 4mm beads are going to start forming the flower crown for the other half of the rondelle. So what we're going to do is pass all the way down so that it's all hanging up in weird places. Thread back through the 3mm bead that is in between the set of seed beads, so that, and you end up with the sort of fringe component. Okay. Pull it snug so that everything is all cinched together, and you end up with a sort of loopy fringe on top. Now what you're going to do is add on 6 more size 15 seed beads, and 1 Delica bead. Then you're going to pass up through the second 4mm bead on your top crown. So that it forms an X hanging off the side. We're going to set up the next stitch by moving through a Delica bead that is on the next round, and the third 4mm bead on the top round. Then we're going to add on 1 Delica, 6 size 15 seed beads, 1 color B 3mm bead, 6 seed beads, 1 Delica, 1 4mm, and 1 Delica. To join this together, what we're going to do is pass through the second 4mm bead that's on the bottom flower. So that we end up with this giant gap in between. Next, what we're going to do is add on 1 Delica and 6 seed beads, Then we're going to pass through the 3mm bead in between the set of two sets of seed beads. So we end up with half of an X. We end up with an XY chromosome. How cute is that? To finish off, what we are going to do is add on 6 seed beads and 1 Delicas bead. Then we are going to pass through the second 4mm bead on our flower round. And we form something a little bit like that. Now, the one important thing to keep in mind, when you have finished this, 2 strands will be coming out of each 4mm bead. So if you got 1 or 3, you've done something wrong. So now we are going to step to the next set. What we're going to do is pass on through the next Delicas bead on the top round. And then up through the third 4mm bead. To set up again. Now what I'm going to do is add on 1 Delicas, 6 size 15 seed beads, one color B, 3mm, 6 size 15 seed beads, and 1 Delicas. Then I am going to pass through the third 4mm bead on the bottom round. To add the next set, I'm going to add on 1 Delicas, 1 4mm bead, 1 Delicas, and 6 size 15 seed beads. Then I'm going to pass through the 3mm bead in between the 2 sections here that we've just added. So that we end up with that. To finish this section off, we're going to add 6 seed beads, 1 Delicas, then we are going to pass through the fourth 4mm bead on the top round. And our net is about halfway complete. To set up for the next stitch, what we're going to do is pass through the next Delicas bead over on our top round, and then back down through the next 4mm bead over. For this stitch, after we've done that, we are going to add on 1 Delicas, 6 seed beads, 1 color B, 3mm, 6 seed beads, 1 Delicas, 1 4mm bead, and 1 Delicas. Then we're going to pull that down and join it with the fourth 4mm bead on the bottom flower. Like that. That is number 4. So that we end up with this wide gap that we're going to join together next. So we're going to add on 1 Delicas, 6 seed beads, Then pass down through the 3mm bead in between the set of seed beads. Here's where it gets a little messy to hold, but we're almost there. To finish this one off, we're going to add 6 seed beads, 1 Delica bead, and if we look at our piece, you can kind of see where our next stitch is going to be. This one only has 1 thread coming out of it, so we're going to attach ourselves to the 4th bead on the bottom round. Then our netting continues. To set up for the next stitch, we're going to move through another Delica on our base round, and then up through the 5th bead, our 5th 4mm bead. Then we're going to add on 1 Delica, 6 seed beads, fuzz, 1 color B 3mm bead, 6 seed beads, and 1 Delica bead. We're going to pull that down and pass it through the 5th bead on the bottom flower. So that we end up with this. What we're going to do next is add on 1 Delica, 1 4mm bead, 1 Delica, and 6 size 15 seed beads. We're going to pass through the 3mm bead that is in between the newest set of seed beads. Finish off this one, we are going to add on 6 seed beads, 1 Delica bead, and move up to the 6th bead of our top round. And we have mostly finished this netting. Going to do something a little bit fun to join everything together. First we need to set up by passing through 1 more bead, 1 more Delica bead on our base round on top, which may or may not get tricky because a knot might be there. That and everything is pretty tight. Okay, so like that. Then up through the first 4mm bead of our round. Now, basically what we need to do is finish off our last piece, because you can see these beads both only have 1 strand coming through them, and the strands on top only have 1 coming through them. So what we're going to do is kind of form an X diagonally through each bead. We'll also start off by stuffing in our rondelle bead to kind of help us picture the shape of the piece, and just kind of pinch it by the sides. So what I'm going to do now is add on 1 Delica bead, 6 color A seed beads, or any color seed beads, you know, 3mm color B bead, 6 seed beads, and 1 Delica bead. Okay. Now, from this point, I'm starting in this corner. I'm going to move through this corner and pass through this 4mm bead diagonally from it, so that we end up with that. We have 1/2 of the X. I'm going to add on 1 Delicas bead and move back through the first 4mm bead. So that this will cinch the bottom tight like that. See how that works there? I started from this bead, I moved over to this bead. Now what I'm going to do is add on 1 Delicas and 6 seed beads. Then I'm going to move up through the 3mm bead in the diagonal that I just added. Pull it tight, so that I end up with the majority of an X filled. Now I have a Y. To finish off, we're going to add on 6 seed beads, 1 Delicas, and move over to the 4mm bead that has only 1 strand coming out of it. And this will complete the X. Now we need to go back to the bottom and travel to fix that mess going on down there. So all I'm going to do is pass back through a Delicas bead on the top, go down a 4mm bead, and all the way down through one of the seed bead channels until I reach the bottom. Up through a 4mm bead, and from here I'm just going to cinch all this together by passing through these 6 Delicas beads either once or twice. And that is what we end up with when all the Delicas are nicely pursed together. Now all we gotta do is add the last set of 3mm beads, which is simple. All we're going to do is pass up through a 4mm bead, going to add on 1 seed bead, 1 3mm, color A, 1 seed bead, move on to the next 4mm bead so that these beads sit in between the 2 4mm beads. Like that. Now what we're going to do is go down, move through a Delicas bead, and up through the 3rd 4mm bead, add on 1 seed bead, 1 color A 3mm, 1 seed bead, then pass back through the 2nd 4mm bead, to sit those right in between. We're going to continue on by moving through a Delicas and the 3rd 4mm bead, add on 1 seed bead, 1 color A 3mm, 1 seed bead, jump to the 4th 4mm bead, then once again passing through the next Delicas and up through the 5th 4mm bead, adding on 1 size 15, 1 3mm, 1 size 15, going backwards and passing through the next 4mm bead. So keep doing that in a kind of back and forth motion until you've done the other 2 gaps as well. And you should end up with a star pattern that imitates the one on the bottom that you started with. All that's left to do is to end your threads by sticking half-hitch knots in places and then cutting your thread. And there you have your completed beaded rondelle. Enjoy this, do whatever you wish to it. Hang it on stuff. Throw them at people. And has been part of the Phylactery series. That is all I will be showing for this pendant. If you would like to know how to construct the entire piece, take a look at my Craftsy shop. I'll have a link down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It was quite massive. If there are any other techniques, tips, and tutorials that you would like me to show, let me know in the comments down below. If there is something that I need to be trying out right now, let me know down below as well, and I will see you next time.